We spend our entire lives, like, basically meticulously studying the mechanics of the ascent.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about it. From the absolute second you enter the education system, you were taught this very specific, incredibly aggressive, honestly skill set that's entirely required to climb.
Right. It's all about upward mobility.
Exactly. Securing the grip, finding the leverage, pulling your whole body weight up to the next run on the ladder. It's networking, grinding, outperforming your peers.
Yeah, and the pursuit of that summit is practically hardwired into us at this point. I mean, the culture just celebrates the climbers.
You really do.
We have like countless manuals and seminars and frameworks entirely dedicated to gaining altitude, acquiring the title, securing the corner office, all of that.
But if you pause, and I mean really pause, and look around at the people who actually make it to the top of their respective ladders, you start to notice this bizarre, almost terrifying blind spot.
Which is that nobody knows what to do once they get there.
Yes, absolutely no one teaches us how to climb back down.
It's so true. We operate under this weird, unspoken delusion that once you reach the peak, gravity just sort of, I don't know, ceases to exist.
Right, like you can just plant your flag and live in the thin air forever.
Exactly. But when you are up there, the vertigo sets in.
Oh, the vertigo's real.
The wind is howling, your muscles are trembling, and the sheer terror of losing your grip makes you clench your fists even tighter around whatever power you've managed to accumulate.
And the idea of voluntarily letting go, of actually stepping back down while you still have some strength left, I mean, it feels totally unnatural.
It feels like failure, honestly.
Right. It feels like you're giving up,
Mm.
which is the ultimate irony.
It really is, because historically and honestly, mathematically, the refusal to climb down is exactly the thing that guarantees the fatal fall.
And that terrifying transition from clinging desperately to the peak to gracefully returning to the ground is exactly what we are unpacking in our deep dive today.
Yeah, and we have a really fascinating stack of sources for this one.
We really do. It takes everything modern hustle culture preaches and just flips it completely upside down. We're looking at ancient Taoist philosophy, specifically the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi.
Two of the most foundational texts in Eastern thought.
Right. And we are cross-referencing those ancient texts with modern corporate sustainability frameworks, contemporary management theories, stuff like that.
It's a brilliant crossover.
It is. We're exploring this highly counterintuitive wisdom of withdrawing when the work is done, which the Taoists call gong sui shen tui.
Gong Sui Shen Tui. Yeah, it's a fascinating synthesis. I mean, we are bridging literally thousands of years of human observation here.
Go easily.
On one side, you have these sages navigating the brutal existential chaos of ancient China. And on the other side, you have modern organizational psychologists trying to figure out why highly successful companies and, brilliant executives suddenly just implode.
And I want to set the tone here right from the start. If you're listening to this on your commute, maybe you're heading into a mid-level management job where you were fighting tooth and nail for a promotion, I want to be upfront.
Yeah, this isn't that kind of deep dive.
Exactly. This is not a 10 life hacks to crush your enemies and dominate Q3 discussion.
Not at all.
We are taking a much longer, slightly weathered, deeply reflective look at the architecture of a whole life.
Yeah.
This is really about the long game.
Preserving your reputation.
Yes, your reputation, your sanity, your physical energy, and ultimately your legacy. And doing that by knowing the precise, strategic moment to step off the stage.
And to even begin contemplating that step back, we really have to grapple with the foundational law of physics that these texts present.
It's the law of reversal, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Tao Te Ching operates on this dialectic principle that translates roughly to reversal is the movement of Tao.
Reversal is the movement of Tao.
Okay. It's the idea that everything in the universe inherently contains its opposite.
Meaning, like, you can't have light without shadow. You can't have growth without decay.
Exactly. But it goes deeper than mere existence. It's really about trajectory.
Trajectory, how do you mean?
The texts argue that when a situation or a force or even an individual reaches its absolute extreme limit, it doesn't just stop there.
Right, it doesn't just plateau.
No, it inevitably and systematically turns into its direct opposite. The Chinese phrase used in the text is wu suang zilao.
Wu suan zilao. What does that mean literally?
It means when things reach their prime, they begin to age. Or, honestly, more accurately, they begin to rot.
Oh, wow. They begin to rot. Let's ground that in reality for a second, because if I push something to its absolute limit, my modern corporate brain thinks, well, I've just achieved maximum efficiency.
Right, you think you've optimized the system.
Exactly. But this ancient law says, I haven't achieved efficiency at all. It says, I've actually triggered a countdown to destruction.
Think of a pendulum.
Okay, a pendulum.
When a pendulum swings to its absolute highest point, that moment of maximum potential energy, it doesn't just hang there in triumph.
Right, gravity takes over.
Exactly. That peak is the exact millisecond. Gravity reasserts total control and yanks it violently in the other direction.
Wow.
And you have to remember the context. When Laozi was compiling the Tao Te Ching during the spring and autumn period, which was a time of endless, incredibly bloody warfare, clinging to power at the peak, wasn't just a career misstep.
It was literal annihilation.
Right. It meant literal death. A warlord who refused to stop conquering eventually overextended his supply lines, exhausted his troops, and his entire empire just collapsed inward.
So the stakes were pure survival. You either stepped back or your entire lineage was erased from history.
Yes.
But let's translate that pendulum swing to the modern office environment because, we aren't warlords on chariots anymore.
Thankfully.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So how does that law of reversal manifest today? Like for a VP of sales or a startup founder?
Well, the mechanism is completely identical, even if the battlefield has changed. In the modern workplace, a leader who reaches the peak of their influence and absolutely refuses to let go, they become a bottleneck.
Oh, I've seen that. They start hoarding the decision-making.
Exactly. They micromanage because they deeply believe their continued hyper-involvement is the only thing that sustains the success.
Right. They think, I built this, so I have to control every detail.
But by applying maximum pressure, by pushing that pendulum to the absolute extreme, they end up crushing the autonomy of their own team.
So the direct opposite of their intention occurs.
Exactly. Instead of sustained excellence, you get severe executive burnout, you get a toxic culture of dependence, and eventually the total collapse of the department's productivity.
It makes me think of like the basic biology of breathing.
Oh, I like that. Go on.
You can train yourself to inhale deeply and hold your breath underwater, right? You can hold it for a really long time, literally fighting your own diaphragm, feeling that intense pressure build up in your chest.
Yeah, the burning sensation.
Right. And you might even feel this bizarre sense of power or control over your own body for a minute. Like, look at me, I'm mastering my biology. But eventually, the biology of your own system will violently force you to exhale.
Oh, 100%.
You cannot outwill nature. Nature always wins.
The system will self-correct, and usually it does it without any regard for your personal comfort.
Exactly. So if we know the exhale is inevitable, if we know that pendulum has to swing back, the real question is, how do we trigger it on our own terms before we just drown?
Well, the texts propose a highly intentional strategy for this. They talk about guarding softness and positioning oneself behind.
Guarding softness.
In Chinese, it's sharu and chuhao.
Yeah.
And it's crucial to understand that this is not a surrender.
It's not giving up.
Not at all. It is a deliberate, highly strategic withdrawal to create a buffer between yourself and the inevitable system collapse.
So you intentionally step off the peak so you aren't standing there holding a metal rod when the lightning strikes.
That is a perfect way to put it, yes.
But, okay, if the first step is accepting that nature forces the exhale, the immediate next problem for a modern professional is calibration.
Right, knowing the metrics.
Yeah. How do you develop the internal sensor to know exactly when you've inhaled enough? Because, we are swimming in a culture that explicitly tells us enough does not exist.
Oh, absolutely. And that brings us to one of the most challenging concepts in the entire Tao Te Ching. Shishibudai. Which translates to knowing when to stop prevents danger.
Knowing when to stop prevents danger.
Wow. The text pairs this idea with knowing contentment to avoid disgrace. It essentially demands the absolute discarding of extremes, of luxury, and of excessive measures.
Okay, discarding excessive measures.
Right. It argues that good management, whether you are managing a global supply chain or literally just your own career trajectory, requires entirely abandoning the pursuit of the absolute maximum.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Please do.
Because in modern business, abandoning the pursuit of the maximum is essentially corporate heresy.
Oh, it's a fireable offense in some place.
Right. If I go to my board of directors and say, hey guys, we had a great Q3, we've achieved contentment, so we were going to discard excessive measures and just stop growing, they will fire me before I even finish the sentence.
They absolutely will.
The entire system, the whole stock market, is built on infinite compound growth.
And that tension you are identifying right there is exactly why we are seeing such a profound crisis in modern corporate systems. And it's also where our sources make this brilliant leap.
The jump to sustainability.
Yes. The stack we reviewed includes contemporary research on what's called the Deep and Shallow Sustainability Intervention Framework.
Which sounds very academic.
It does, but it maps ancient Taoist philosophy directly onto modern ESG criteria.
Environmental, social, and governance.
Exactly.
So how does an ancient text about knowing when to stop actually map onto modern corporate sustainability metrics?
It all comes down to systems theory. The Taoist perspective views all ecological systems as a single interconnected organism.
Everything is connected.
Right. The macrocosm and the microcosm operate on the exact same physical limits. So in the environmental sphere, let's say a logging company blindly expands its operations, right? They strip a forest bare to maximize quarterly profit without ever knowing when to stop.
They destroy the soil's ability to regenerate.
Exactly. They might achieve record, incredible profits for one single year, but then the company goes completely bankrupt because the resource is extinct.
Right. The pursuit of the extreme destroyed the actual foundation.
Yes. The company acts as a parasite that kills the host and thereby kills itself.
That makes perfect sense for the E in ESG, the environmental part.
But now, map that onto the social and governance pillars of a company.
Oh, human capital.
Right. If you, as a manager, treat your own team the exact way that logging company treats the forest.
Oh, man. Extracting every ounce of their energy.
Exactly. Demanding infinite late nights, hoarding all the resources and credit to bolster your own KPIs. You are strip mining your human ecosystem.
You leave your people with absolutely no oxygen.
And what happens? The team burns out, all your top talent quits, and you are left standing alone in a barren landscape, scratching your head, wondering why productivity plummeted.
It's the buffet analogy.
The buffet analogy?
Yeah, think about going to an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Okay, I'm with you.
The amateur, right? The person driven entirely by the desire to maximize their financial return on the entry fee, they eat until they are physically sick.
They push themselves to the absolute extreme.
Exactly. And they ruin their own evening.
Yeah.
But the seasoned foodie, the person who's actually playing the long game, they eat until they are satisfied. They actually experience the pleasure of the meal, and then they voluntarily push the plate away.
Because they know the exact metric of enough.
Right. They know when to stop.
And defining that finish line, that metric of enough, is the ultimate power move.
Why is it a power move?
Because the person who cannot define enough is basically a slave to their own appetites. They are entirely predictable. And because they are predictable, they are easily manipulated by anyone offering the promise of more.
Oh, that is so true. If you always want more, your boss can always dangle a carrot.
Exactly. But the leader who knows when to stop, who has defined their metric, they retain their absolute autonomy.
Man, that is powerful. Okay, so let's assume I'm listening to this, and I've had that moment of clarity.
The light bulb goes off.
I recognize I've hit the peak, I've defined my personal metric of enough, and I've decided, okay, I'm going to stop hoarding power.
Right?
The immediate, totally practical problem becomes, what do I actually do with the power I've already accumulated?
Because you can't just drop it.
Exactly. I can't just drop it on the floor and walk out the door. That just creates a massive power vacuum, which creates total chaos for my team.
Right. You don't drop it, you distribute it, you let it flow downward to the next generation.
I let it downward.
And this introduces literally the most famous and probably the most misunderstood metaphor in all of Taoist leadership.
Which is?
Shan Ruo Shui. The highest good is like water.
Okay, water. Now, water is one of those metaphors that just gets thrown around in corporate retreats constantly, right? Like, hey, team, we need to be fluid. Go with the flow.
Yeah, it becomes a cliche.
Exactly. But what does it actually mean operationally for a leader who is trying to execute a graceful handoff?
Well, the sources actually outline 3 highly specific dimensions of water that a leader must emulate during this transition phase. It's not just be fluid.
Okay, what's the first dimension?
The first is that water benefits all things. It operates with this natural altruism. It nourishes the entire ecosystem without ever presenting an invoice.
No invoice.
Right. It evaporates, it falls as rain, it feeds the crops, and it never demands a title for doing so.
It just does the work.
Exactly. Now, the second dimension is its transparency and its adaptability to its container. It doesn't force the container to change, it shapes itself to fit.
Okay, that makes sense. And the third?
The third dimension is the actual mechanism for the handoff. Water naturally, inevitably, seeks the lowest places. It physically flows to the places other people despise.
It seeks the low ground, meaning it actively avoids the pedestal.
Exactly. Chapter 66 of the text asks this brilliant rhetorical question. How does the sea become the king of all streams?
Because it lies lower than they do.
Yes. The sea doesn't sit on top of a mountain demanding that all the water flow up to it. It rests at the absolute lowest point, and gravity naturally delivers all the rivers directly to it.
That is such a vivid image.
Therefore, a highly effective modern leader manages this transition by purposely humbling themselves in speech and intentionally placing themselves behind their team.
Okay, translating this into like a Tuesday morning strategy meeting.
Yeah.
This is essentially the pivot from being the commander who gives the orders to being the coach who facilitates the execution.
Yes. It is the active practice of Buyanji Jiao, which means teaching without words.
Teaching without words.
You lead by establishing the environment, by setting the conditions, not by dictating the micro actions.
Which is the opposite of micromanaging.
Exactly. One of the management articles in our research stack specifically warns that too many words lead to exhaustion. The Chinese phrase is duo yan shuquan.
Too many words lead to exhaustion.
Think about it. If a manager tries to control a transition by writing 50-page manuals and demanding hourly Slack updates...
Oh, the team just becomes completely paralyzed by the friction of compliance.
Right, the power isn't flowing at all. It's stagnating. It's a swamp.
I hear that, and it sounds beautiful in theory. But if I'm playing devil's advocate here...
Go for it.
The modern corporate environment is incredibly cutthroat.
It is.
If I intentionally put myself below my team, if I purposely humble my speech and stop asserting my dominance in every meeting, won't I just get trampled?
That is the fear, right?
Yeah. I mean, in a culture that absolutely worships executive presence, abandoning the high ground sounds less like being water and way more like being a doormat.
That fear of being trampled is the biggest hurdle to adopting this philosophy. And it really stems from a deep misunderstanding of the concept of wu wei.
Wu wei. Non-action.
Right. It's often translated simply as non-action, which to a modern ear sounds like apathy. It sounds like passivity.
It sounds like taking a nap at your desk.
Exactly. But the sources are deeply insistent that wu wei is a highly active state. It is resonance, not resignation.
Resonance, not resignation. Walk me through the mechanics of that. How exactly is non-action active?
Think about the physics of resonance.
Okay.
Let's say you have two tuning forks. One tuning fork doesn't force the other tuning fork to vibrate by physically walking over and striking it.
Right, doesn't need it.
It simply vibrates at a highly specific frequency, and the other fork naturally begins to match it. It resonates.
I see.
When a leader practices wu wei, they stop actively fighting for control over every single variable. By consciously stepping back into that low ground we talked about, they create a vacuum.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. By not acting, by not filling the air with instructions, the leader forces the grassroots talent to step up and fill that space.
So you aren't a doormat at all.
No. You are the solid, unshakable foundation that provides the psychological safety for others to finally test their own weight. Power comes to you naturally, like those rivers flowing to the sea, because everyone implicitly trusts a leader who isn't actively trying to drown them.
Wow. So the true metric of a successful handoff isn't how well the team follows my old instructions.
No.
It's whether they actually need me at all.
Chapter 17 defines the ultimate success of this kind of leadership perfectly. It says that when the task is completed and the transition is finished, the people look around and say, we ourselves have achieved it.
They genuinely believe it was all their own doing.
Yes.
We ourselves have achieved it.
Conceptually, as a philosophy, that is a beautiful outcome.
It is.
But psychologically, for the human leader, that sounds like pure torture.
Oh, it goes against every instinct we have.
Think about it. You spend a decade of your life building a department from scratch. You execute this brilliant, graceful, Taoist handoff, and then your team turns around and happily takes all the credit.
Yeah, they pat themselves on the back. To pull that off without feeling incredibly bitter, a leader has to totally dismantle the loudest, most demanding obstacle in the room.
Their own ego.
Their own ego. The human desire for recognition.
And this is the crux of the entire philosophy. The text commands the practitioner to accomplish the work but not claim it, or in some translations, not dwell on it. The phrase is gongcheng buju.
Accomplishing without claiming.
And the reasoning behind it is almost paradoxical. It says that because the sage does not boast, their credit is never forgotten.
Wait, say that again? Because they don't boast, they aren't forgotten.
Right. By refusing to desperately clutch the trophy, history actually awards it to them permanently.
It makes me think of building a massive, highly intricate house.
Okay, let's build a house.
Let's say you are the architect. You literally poured the concrete foundation with your own hands. You framed the walls. You obsessed over the design of every single room. You sacrificed years of your life to build this beautiful structure.
It's your masterpiece.
Right. But at some point, the house is finished.
And people are supposed to live in it.
Exactly. New people are supposed to move in. But if you absolutely refuse to hand over the keys...
If you just won't leave.
Yeah, if you insist on unrolling a sleeping bag in the middle of the living room forever because you just cannot bear to let it go, you aren't the architect anymore.
What are you?
You've become a trespasser in your own creation.
Wow, a trespasser.
You are actively ruining the very thing you built, just to constantly prove to everyone that you built it.
That is a harsh, yet entirely accurate visualization of the executive who just won't step down. You literally transition from being the creator to being a squatter.
A squatter, exactly.
But knowing when your role in the creation has actually concluded requires an immense cognitive leap. It's not easy. And our sources point to a famous historical idiom that encapsulates this perfectly.
Which idiom is that?
Ji lu meng triet, which translates to retreating bravely in the rapids.
Retreating bravely in the rapids. I love that phrasing.
Yeah.
Because it takes way more courage to stop paddling and let go than to just keep blindly fighting the current.
It really does.
Where does that idiom actually come from?
It originates from the true story of Qian Rushui. He was a brilliant scholar and an imperial official during the Song dynasty.
Okay, set the scene for us. What's the context of the Song dynasty?
The historical context here is absolutely vital. In the Song dynasty, the imperial bureaucracy was the absolute pinnacle of human achievement.
Like the ultimate corporate ladder.
Oh, beyond that, millions of men studied their entire lives for the imperial exams. Only a tiny, microscopic fraction ever passed and achieved real power. So the cultural pressure to accumulate position and then hold on to it at all costs was immense.
So nobody ever stepped down voluntarily?
Never. But the story goes that a wise old monk evaluated Qian Rushui when he was young and predicted he would be a rare anomaly. He predicted he would be a person capable of stepping away at the absolute zenith of his career.
The exact moment when everyone else in the empire is doubling down.
Exactly. And Qian Rushui, he rose through the ranks rapidly. He eventually became the Deputy Commissioner of Military Affairs.
Which is a huge deal.
Huge. In the context of the empire, he literally held the levers of life and death. He had wealth, prestige, massive influence. But then, at the age of 40, 40, an age when most ambitious men are just beginning their ruthless, decades-long campaign for the premiership, at 40, he abruptly resigned.
He just quit.
He handed back his seals of office, said goodbye, and retreated to live quietly.
40 years old. I mean, today, a 40-year-old executive is usually like listening to podcasts on 2x speed about how to totally dominate the next 3 decades of their industry.
Right, they're optimizing their biorhythms to work 80 hours a week.
Exactly. So what are the psychological mechanics behind a decision like that? How does a person actually rewire their human brain to walk away from a point of maximum leverage?
The research in our stack dives deep into the psychology of letting go, and it identifies a necessary fundamental cognitive shift. A shift from separation to unity and from selfishness to altruism.
Separation to unity.
Right. As long as you view yourself as a totally isolated entity, someone whose worth is defined purely by your title or your salary stepping down literally feels like death.
Because it's an erasure of the self. If I'm not the VP, who am I?
Exactly. To retreat bravely, you have to shift to unity. You have to realize that the organization or the mission or the house you built in your analogy is an ongoing ecosystem.
It's bigger than you.
Yes, your departure isn't the end of the story, it's just the start of the next necessary chapter for the ecosystem.
The Zhuangzi has a specific protocol for achieving that mindset, doesn't it?
It does. It refers to a practice called Sinzigai, which translates to fasting the mind.
Fasting the mind, like fasting from food, but for your thoughts.
Exactly. Just as you fast the body to clear out physical toxins, you have to systematically fast the mind to empty the ego. The sources list the specific mental toxins that must be starved out.
What are the toxins?
Arrogance, excessive desires, and what they call jiaoqi.
Jiaoqi.
Which means haughty airs, or a demanding sense of self-importance. You have to actively, systematically untangle your inherent human value from your temporary professional function.
Untangle your value from your function,
Yeah.
which maps absolutely perfectly onto what Chapter 67 of the Tao Te Ching calls the three treasures.
Yes, the three treasures.
Because if you are fasting the mind,
Yeah.
right, you are emptying out the arrogance. But nature abhors a vacuum. You have to replace it with something.
Right.
And the text says, I have three treasures which I hold and keep safe: mercy, frugality, and daring not to be the first in the world.
Let's really analyze how those three specific traits dismantle the corporate ego.
Let's do it.
Take mercy. Deep compassion forces you to care more about the long-term well-being of the team that's taking over than you care about your own glorious mic drop exit.
You want them to succeed, genuinely.
Right. Then there's frugality. In this context, it isn't just about saving company money, it's about conserving energy. It allows you to be highly generous with resources because you finally stopped aggressively hoarding them to build your own personal monuments.
And the third treasure, daring not to be the first. I mean, that is the ultimate antithesis of modern business culture.
It completely breaks the modern mold.
We are constantly bombarded with the mandate to be first. Be the first to market, be the unicorn, be the absolute industry disruptor, be the alpha in the room.
But the text argues that fighting endlessly to be first places you in a permanent, exhausting state of vulnerability.
Because you're the target.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are a target for every single competitor. But by actively daring not to be first, by purposely stepping out of the glaring spotlight and taking the low ground, you actually become the foundational support.
The foundation.
You become the true chief of all vessels because eventually everything relies on the quiet strength of the base.
Which brings us to the final and frankly the most pragmatic layer of this entire philosophy.
The survival aspect.
Yes. We've talked about letting go as a favor to the ecosystem.
Right.
And as a way to empower the next generation, and as this deeply spiritual exercise in ego death.
All very noble things.
Right. But ultimately, the deepest, most practical truth in these sources is that withdrawing when the work is done is the ultimate strategy for your own personal self-preservation.
It really is.
This isn't just moral philosophy, it's a literal survival manual.
It absolutely is a survival manual. And this survival imperative is incredibly stark when you look at how the Taoists view conflict and success. Chapter 31 dives straight into military philosophy, and it delivers a line that is, well, it's incredibly difficult for modern achievers to digest.
Let me guess. Schengen Bume.
Yes. Winning is not beautiful.
Winning is not beautiful. Let's just sit with that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Winning is not beautiful. I can practically hear the collective groan of every sales director listening to this.
They hate it.
Because the entire modern corporate apparatus is meticulously designed to make winning look incredibly beautiful.
Oh, it's glamorized to the extreme.
The ringing of the sales bell, the massive commission checks, the glowing press releases. If winning isn't beautiful, what is it?
The text treats it as a tragedy.
But tragedy.
Yes. It states that weapons are inauspicious tools. Jia Bing Bushang. And it goes further. It says that even when a victory is decisively won, the sage dictates it must be treated with the solemnity of a funeral rite.
A funeral rite.
Yi Sang Li Chu Zi.
Okay, I have to challenge this.
Go ahead.
Because, practically speaking, if I close a massive company-saving deal and then I walk into the office the next morning acting like I'm at a funeral, my team is going to think I've completely lost my mind.
They'd be very confused.
They need that celebration to stay motivated. Why on earth would we mourn a victory?
Because the Taoist is always looking at the hidden ledger.
The hidden ledger.
Yes. What did that victory actually cost? Think about it. If you totally crush a competitor, you haven't just won. You've created a desperate, humiliated enemy who will spend the next decade plotting revenge.
Okay, that's true in business too.
Or internally. If you pushed your team through 3 straight months of sleepless nights to launch a product, yes, you won the market share. But what did it cost? You destroyed the adrenal systems of your top engineers.
And half of them are quietly updating their resumes on LinkedIn right now.
Exactly. The funeral rite isn't about being depressed. It is a profound, mature acknowledgement of the human and systemic cost of forcing an outcome.
So if you celebrate the win without mourning the cost...
You become addicted to the violence of the hustle.
Wow. You start treating the weapons as auspicious. You literally start looking for wars to fight just so you can feel the rush of winning again.
Exactly. And that addiction leads directly to the breakdown of the leader's own physical body.
The biology strikes back.
Yes. The sources present a vital structural concept here, Shen Guitangu, which means the body and the state share the same structure.
The macrocosm and the microcosm again. How managing a massive organization Maps perfectly onto managing your own physical health.
The rules of resource depletion are entirely universal. If you treat your business like an endless, brutal war, if you're constantly forcing outcomes, refusing to delegate, living in a permanent state of high alert command and control.
You are draining the organization's capital.
Yes, but simultaneously, you are physically flooding your own biological system with cortisol.
Right.
You are actively suppressing your immune system. You are spiking your blood pressure. The text specifically warns that this overmanagement causes the leader's physical and spiritual energy to scatter and dissipate. The phrase is Jingsan.
So the refusal to step back, the refusal to withdraw when the work is actually done, isn't just a metaphor for a bad career move.
No.
It literally, biologically kills you. You overmanage yourself right into an early grave.
The ultimate goal of Taoist practice is Changshen Jushi, long life and enduring vision.
Long life and enduring vision.
But you cannot achieve enduring vision if you burn your retinas out staring directly into the sun. By knowing exactly when to step back, by practicing what the texts call achieving the goal, but not being arrogant or forceful, you aren't just saving the company, you're literally protecting your physical vitality.
You're shielding your mental health.
You survive precisely because you knew the exact moment to stop fighting.
It's the profound difference between choosing to be a firework or choosing to be a glowing ember.
Oh, I love this analogy.
Think about the life cycle of a firework. It requires an immense, violent amount of explosive energy to shoot up to the absolute highest point in the dark sky.
It fights gravity all the way up.
Right. And then it detonates with this massive, deafening noise. It demands that absolutely everyone for miles around stop what they are doing and look at it. It becomes the center of the universe.
About 3 seconds.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then a second later, it's just gone. It burns out completely, leaving absolutely nothing but smoke and some falling paper debris. It traded its entire existence for 3 seconds of maximum glaring attention.
A spectacular but ultimately useless display.
But an ember doesn't explode. It settles down into the ash at the very bottom of the hearth. It literally takes the low ground.
Seeking the lowest place, like water.
Exactly. It glows quietly. It conserves its fuel, radiating this steady, highly reliable heat. And because it doesn't demand to explode, because it doesn't need to be a firework, that single ember can actually keep a family warm through the entire freezing night.
That's beautiful.
Withdrawing when the work is done. Gongsui Shintui is the conscious, deeply courageous choice to stop trying to be the firework and to finally settle into being the ember.
It is the realization that true mastery of the mountain isn't just about surviving the brutal ascent to the peak. True mastery is the wisdom to execute the descent, ensuring you actually live long enough to tell the story of the view.
We've covered immense ground in this deep dive today.
We really have.
We started by confronting the inescapable physics of the law of reversal, the harsh reality that pushing any situation, any team, or any human body to its absolute extreme mathematically guarantees its collapse.
The pendulum always swings back.
Always. We explored the terrifying freedom of defining our own internal metric of enough, pushing away the buffet plate of endless, toxic corporate growth.
Retaining your autonomy.
Right. We dissected the fluid dynamics of leading like water, shifting from the loud dictatorial commander to the quiet foundational coach, allowing the grassroots to confidently say, "We ourselves achieved it."
Teaching without words.
We faced the brutal ego detox required to accomplish great things without needing to chain our fragile identities to them, retreating bravely in the rapids, just like Qian Roshui did at the height of the Song dynasty.
Fasting the mind.
And finally, we saw the undeniable biological truth that treating our careers and our bodies as connected ecosystems is the only sustainable way to preserve our life energy.
The wisdom of Gongsu Shentui really is a radical rejection of everything modern society relentlessly demands of us, which is exactly why it is so vitally necessary to study it today.
So before you step out of the car or finish your workout or walk into that next relentless high-stakes strategy meeting, I want to leave you with a direct challenge.
A final thought.
I want you to visualize the one project, the one specific title, or the one piece of authority you are holding on to the absolute tightest right now.
The one you can't let go of.
The one thing that makes your chest visibly tighten at the mere thought of letting someone else run it. Imagine your hand gripping it like a lifeline.
White knuckles.
Now, what would actually happen if, tomorrow morning, you simply opened your hand?
Just let it go.
Would the world actually end? Would you truly lose your entire identity? Or would you finally for the very first time in years, have two free hands to begin building whatever beautiful thing is supposed to come next?
That's a powerful question.
Think about it. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.